Hello everyone, welcome to the next episode on SAP ABAP on cloud training with RESTful ABAP programming model. In the last episode, we talked about unmanaged scenario. We have seen how can we use SAP unmanaged scenario where we will be writing the application logic and we will be handling the complete transactional capabilities with ABAP on cloud. In today's episode, we will go ahead and implement remaining methods for unmanaged scenarios. So by far in the classes, we have implemented a display-like application, and also we have implemented a behavior definition, basic behavior definition. Along with that, we have also implemented the create functionality. Just a quick recap of what we did by far. So I'll quickly open our package, and it was ZATS00. That is our package name. So just open that. And in this package, then we have all the artifacts which we have created by far, which includes behavior definition and implementation. So let me just open the package up. And now, as you can see here, we first started with the data model, the core data services for the flight model. So all the demo scenarios. So you can see here the customer agency. Then we had the consumption or the projection view called consumption unmanaged scenario travel view. That was our CDS data model or the projection, which includes the UI annotations. And then using this UI annotation based projection CDS, we created on top a behavior definition. So remember, it's a one-to-one relationship between behavior definition and the CDS data model. So here we have created a behavior definition. It was also important to mark this CDS as a root view so that this represents a business object, which is different from the BOPF business object. So in context of RESTful programming, this is another business object which is considered. And then what we did was we created this definition, and then we created a behavior implementation. The behavior implementation is nothing but an ABAP class which implements the code, which you can give it here, as you can see. And I'm just going to open the class, control and click in a Eclipse environment shortcut, control click to open the class. A behavior implementation class is nothing but a class pool which is defined in the local types. There are two classes here we created, local classes. The first class, which is inheriting from the behavior handler class. Another class is basically behavior saver class. So this is the inheritance for these two local classes. Why there are two? Because the first one represents your transaction buffer and second one represents your save sequence. So in the last episode, when we went back, we discussed about how a transaction is carried out manually by any ABAP developer. So you will have a screen, and then you will have an application logic internal table where you buffer all the data. You don't whenever user change on the screen, immediately you don't fire a save or insert or modify to database. You make changes in your local buffers, local internal tables, and once you finalize the changes, user hits the save button, and that is the point you want to use function modular class to insert, update, delete data in the database. Similarly, in RESTful programming, we all of this is managed by the framework. You don't have to manually declare internal tables and stuff like that. This is all completely managed by the framework itself. So what is the framework doing here? It's maintaining a transactional buffer where it is keeping all the data, and this transactional buffer is known as mapped. So if you really go back and check here the code which we implemented for create, you can see we are inserting this data in a mapped one. So this is your transaction buffer. All right, this is your transaction buffer here. If there is no message, we are just updating our transaction buffer, so that later point of time the framework will take this and fire or inserts this. Finally the transaction buffer, it moves to the save sequence, so all the data will be kept in this transaction buffer. So this is your transaction buffer. So just also note down the code here, filling the transaction buffer also. So this is your transaction buffer, we are filling it out in the system, and now this transaction buffer contains all the data. However, at the same time, we have also called the function module because it's an unmanaged scenario. Okay, so here if you go back, So this is something given in the documentation. Okay, all of this is given in the documentation. You can just check the documentation. I'll also give you the link in a minute. So now here, this is what we are doing is we are calling, since it's an unmanaged scenario, all the logic is written already, and we are reusing the same. That's your unmanaged scenario. So last time there was also a question about what about validations. So all the validation which you're supposed to do will be done within this already written logic. Yes. So there is no possibility that you can implement this method here, check before save, because you don't get any data in this method. During this method, I tried yesterday setting up a breakpoint and see if there is any access of the data from the transaction buffer to me. I could not get that. So that's the reason all the validation should be implemented inside your function modules, which do exist already. And that should return an LT message to back to you in case something went wrong. If there is nothing wrong, we are updating, filling the transaction buffer. If there is a problem, then we are actually uh, reading the failed keys, or basically populating the failed keys. You can see this is a failed key. Failed key means it will tell the Fiori front end that boss, something went wrong. So if you fill the failed key, then what system will do, system will actually fill this whole transaction and automatically throw an error message to the user. If you fill the transaction buffer, then system will carry forward this transaction to the save sequence, and in the save sequence, then you have these three methods which are called sequentially. First the finalize will be called, then the check before save will be called, and then the save will be called. In the save, finally we are calling the function module here to commit the transaction. So this is an entire sequence of calls. We have also talked about it. We have interaction phase, then we have transaction buffer, then we have a save sequence. All right, and then finally the data gets inserted in the database. So after implementing this class pool, we did went into the service binding, which was for the UI model. So I'm going to go back to the business service definition. So we defined the service definition, and then of course there was a service implementation later point of time. So this was the implementation. And now if I just open the preview, remember this is not the real productive Fiori app which you give to you users. We will be creating that today, the productive one in SAP Cloud Platform using Web IDE, but this is just a preview for you as a developer. How will the actual app will look like? Very, very important step here. This is not a productive app for your end user. You cannot share this to the end user. This is just an app preview. And now just click on go button, and you would see it will fetch you all the data, which is fine. And just click on create button, and let's create some record. Now agency number, I will just choose an F4. Now watch out, I enter a wrong agency number. See what happens. Okay, this is something which I wanted to show you. So I just enter 700, which is not a valid agency number. Rest all the data I will enter valid data. So that was about the validation part. Somebody was asking about how does the validation is working here. So validation testing, travel status is planned or new. And now watch out, I click on save button, and you would see automatically I should get an error message from my backend system saying that there will be some error. Okay, it's hitting my debugger. You see it's hitting some debugger because I've set a debugger. I just remove it for now, and F8 to just show you what happens now. So when you come back, you see an exception is coming automatically. This is automatically validating. Why it is doing so? The reason for doing that is because this validation is implemented inside my already existing logic. It's an unmanaged scenario. This should be only and only used when you already have some logic in the system. Like for example, you already have a function module to create sales order. So all the validation logic goes inside the function module, and then automatically system will take care of it. So you should not implement validation yourself. In this case, in this scenario, we will be doing that in managed scenario, because managed scenario the framework, it's all framework driven. It's like greenfield implementation. So this is a brownfield implementation. In this case, system assumes that all the validation also already exists as part of your function module, and that's how it behaves. Now just to debug and show you how do you trace this error, it's very easy to find out the root cause. So you can just go back to your create implementation, and here you can set up a breakpoint in the create method. Let me just double click on Eclipse line number 36. Besides that, a blue color bubble comes up. This indicates that now we have a debugger, we have a debugging point which has been set up. We will go back, fire the save. It will now trigger our breakpoint. Yes, exactly. And voila, you see it's triggering our breakpoint out here. And we are in the debug perspective. So debug perspective kind of gives you a perspective to explore all the variables. You see here, you can explore all the local variables. You see field table mapped. This is a transactional buffer. So you can see entities. Entities is the incoming data from the Fiori UI. So this is all the data which has come. And this is your content ID. So until the real travel ID, see travel ID is 0 because it's a new record. Right now the primary key is not yet generated. So until unless the primary key is not generated in the system, somehow you need to track the every record across different sessions uniquely. Okay, every instance needs to be tracked uniquely, and that's what will happen here. You see this content ID is generated, and then we have the agency ID, customer ID, begin date, end date, all of this. Now if we fire a save on function module, and if that is successful, what we will do is we'll take this whole data from the function module to the transaction buffer. So basically we will be mapping or moving this data from entities to the map to the transactional buffer. That's what we'll be doing if my function module call is successful. As a result of function module call, the travel ID will be generated, and this C content ID is no more required. This will become kind of a foreign key later point of time. Just in case something goes wrong, this will become a foreign key. This will not be required. This is only travel ID is required in successful scenario. All right, so now let's go back and explore this. What is happening? So I've passed a incorrect ID. Yeah, incorrect agent ID. So as a result of that, let's see what happens. I say F6. So you see what I pass as 700. Yeah, that's your agency ID 700. I pass it. So this is how you can debug in Eclipse about the incoming calls from the Fiori app. So you see all this data, validation, testing, status was new. Yeah, all this data what I passed is available here for you to debug. It calls the function module F6, and now you see LT message. LT message contains the issues. If there is any issue during post, of course it comes in this return of BAPI messages. I can expand this. It has one record, and now it says E means error message. This is the message class, this is message number, and this is message variable. What you can do is double click, copy the message class, copy, and do Control Shift A and pass the message class name, and now double click, open the message class, and these are all the list of messages we have. So you see message number is 001. So it says agency M%1 is unknown. M%1 value is 700. So it is exactly telling you what went wrong. Yeah, agency, this is unknown. This is what system is telling you. Awesome. So that's the exact error. You've got it here. This LT message will be now not initial, so transaction buffer won't be filled now. Okay, since transaction buffer is not filled, system won't even trigger the save method, because it won't even reach to the next subsequent section. It won't even go to the save sequence because your transaction buffer is not filled yet. Okay, it directly goes to the else part, where it loops over the messages, the error messages, and it populates the failed key. You see it is populating the failed key. Okay, that's what is populating. And whatever failed, since at this point of time the travel ID is not generated, is still, how does it inform the UI that what failed? Correct, how does it inform UI what failed? So that's where this temporary content ID, the temporary primary key, is being used to inform the UI back that, hey, this is something which is failed, I cannot save this. So right now, due to failure, the travel ID did not generate, which we were expecting function module to produce. Like for example, you're creating a sales order. Due to an issue in the sales order, the actual sales order ID not generated. You see travel ID is not generated. Now, since travel ID is not there, you don't have a primary key. How do you inform the UI that which record failed? What exactly went wrong? You will use this temporary primary key. Yeah, the buffered primary key, auto generated primary key called content ID. We discussed about this in the last class. Now, as a result, it will now fill this failed table. You can see the return is failed, and in the failed table now you got a record which indicates what failed. So you see this is the key which is failed. Okay, now I'm just going to say F8. As a result on the UI, you will see an exception is populated and displayed to the user. Awesome. Now what I'm going to do is I will go back and correct the agency number. Say go and select this, and now click on save button again. It should hit our breakpoint once again. Wow. And let's do step by step again. F6, F6, and now watch out, F6 again. When I do F6 this time, ls travel out, it has got a travel ID generated 4142. This is your new travel ID. But remember, right now still the transaction is not committed. Okay, there may be more logic you may write further. Let's say you are writing 5 back-to-back function module to insert 5 different database tables, and one of the call failed. At that point of time you should reject the whole transaction. Correct, should reject the whole transaction, should not do anything. So that's basically your atomicity, either whole or nothing. Yeah, so this is the principle on which you will be coding. Actually, you will be making sure that once everything is fine, only then you populate your transaction buffer. Okay, now I say F6, and now you see filling the transaction buffer, the mapped ones. Okay, so we will fill the mapped ones, will not fill the failed ones this time. Okay, we are not filling failed ones this time, we're just filling the mapped ones. As a result of that, system will now trigger your save sequence. So if I just double click here, you will see the next method, subsequent method call will be save sequence. F8, and you see it has come to the save sequence. Awesome. Now it will save the data. F8. Let's go back to the UI. I hope it should got saved. Yes, object has been created. Awesome. Now that was the ID. So 4142, you can go back and cross check that. I can come back, just check 4142, and voila, you see the travel number 4142 with 50 US dollar has been created with validation testing. Okay, so that's your record which has been now created. Now coming to the next interesting topic, my user want to see the travel ID immediately after creation. Okay, for example, I go for create right now. What you see is our travel ID is nowhere visible. My user want to see travel ID immediately after what is created. Correct? How do we do that? Let's do that. I'm going to go back and go to our data model, and here we will also add the travel ID के लिए annotation for identification so that it can display on the detail page, object page. So UI dot uh, identification, and I will say position is, let's say last position I will add it, which is 100. Done. Watch out now. I just put that 100 and let me activate. So that's just a change to bring the UI on the UI, this travel ID. Okay, I go back and I will leave the page. Just reload our application, and now I click on create button, of course, one more time. Let it load first. Yeah, it's loading. Say create, and wow, there you go. Somewhere you see this travel ID. Now you see, since travel ID is marked mandatory, you see it's marked mandatory. What happens? So let me enter some data. Something I enter. 500 USD, 25,000 USD. Description demo travel status is new, and I not enter this, or maybe there are two problems now. The first thing is user may enter this 4142. Now you know, I know 4142 already exists. Of course, system won't create this. Though all the other data is correct, since your primary key is same, system ideally should not create this. Okay, so I can come down. You see 4142 has come to me as an input, but now I try to create 4142. I get a message. Ideally, I should get it, or it's not giving a message. There's some problem. I'm not sure what's the problem. Ideally, it should give a message that the 4142 already exists. So it's actually going ahead. And but you see, it did not even consider that. It goes to the function module is the way our application logic is implemented. Our application logic says delete the travel id whatever user passing, ignore that completely. No matter what you pass, it generated a new id for you. The save worked actually, and now this id is visible. But now user will have a confusion that, hey, I typed id 4142 but system generated 4143. Correct? That is what user will complain. So we want the travel id to be there, but it should not be editable on the ui. Okay, fair enough. That's what we want. So again, I repeat, just now we had a travel id which was editable while creation, and when we entered some data, it did not save that data, rather it generated a new travel id. That's our functionality, how it is written, the function module. So it produced a new travel id every time. But since user has provided a travel id, user will assume that that travel id will be created, but that's not the case. So in this case, I would say the solution would be making the travel id field as a non-editable on the ui. So whenever the travel is saved, it is non-editable, user can't change it, user can only see it. So after save, user will be able to see this. How can you achieve this? Very easy. Just go back to the behavior definition and just add here call field, and then in the parenthesis called read only, and then we will say field name travel id. That's it. Congratulations everyone. Now let's activate and watch out the magic on the ui. So now when you come back, reload the ui, click on create button, and oops, it's still showing travel id as editable. Ideally it should not. So now I press F12 and just hard reload it quickly. Empty cache and hard reload, just to be very sure, double sure that cache is not a causing a problem. So it should hard reload. Now it's hard reloaded. So we can click on the create button. Okay, it's still loading up. Let's click on create button. And now voila, you see travel ID is there, but it's no more editable. Awesome guys, awesome feature. And now we can enter an agency ID. User, there is no way user can edit this. Okay, user has to now just only view it. So that's the benefit of behavior definition. So now I just choose something, just say 50 US dollars, demo, um, display only, and travel status is new. Click on save. And now you'll see immediately the new travel ID which it will generate will be visible to us. 4144 is generated. So this is another easy way for user to see now your travel ID without editing the travel ID. Even in edit mode, user can't change it. So if I change the status from end to booked maybe, so new to booked, I can say save. You see the travel ID never changes. It is always there. User cannot touch, user can't edit anything. Superb. Now, what about other stuff? For example, I want to indicate agency number and customer number as mandatory field. User has to pass these two values. Okay, I want these to be mandatory field. How can we do that? Once again, go back to behavior definition and just say field. So this is called feature control property. All of these are called feature control as part of behavior definition. So mandatory, and I will say my agency ID, comma, my customer ID. Yeah. So these two, we want it as mandatory. Just save this and activate. So now on that feature control side, you would observe that when we just empty cache and hard reload, you would see that last time it was not marked as mandatory. But this time when user goes onto the UI, you will see it will be marked as mandatory. So I click on create button and it's still not refreshing. Let me just refresh again. So this will be marked as mandatory. Just refresh. So it takes a little bit of time to make the changes reflecting. It's a cloud system, so it's a little slow one. Yes, voila. You can see now here this star. See star here? This star indicates that now your these two fields are mandatory. So that's how you can do feature control with respect to behavior definition. Now the question comes is, Anubhav, what is the syntax? Are there more options? What about late numbering? What about lock? What about e tag, Anubhav? I will showcase you all of this in managed scenario, because late numbering is currently even not supported in managed or unmanaged both. This is something which is right now kept as an option by SAP, not supported, but lock and e-tag both I will show you in the managed scenario. But comes to the question again, how do you know what is transaction buffer? How do you know what is the syntax here? Where are you getting the syntax from? So for that, what I've done is today I've got you a publicly available PDF document which is relevant as of today. Maybe if you're watching this session later point of time, in some time later in the year, things might get changed, things might get new, but as of now this is the latest document I could find which I could share with you publicly. Now I can just go back and SAP, our ABAP on cloud blog. So ABAP on cloud blog. So just go there. This is our training blog where you are watching all the videos later point of time. There is a study material tab, and that's where I have uploaded a very nice, beautiful document for you to try out things step by step. This is called ABAP RESTful Programming Model English. Okay, just click on that and you will find here a very big document for complete ABAP RESTful programming. Okay, this was released last month on 6th by SAP, and you can see it here, the details. So there are a lot of interesting information and details. If I just come specifically to the syntax of behavior definition, just search for this working with behavior definition. You will find here in this document the complete, it's a 762 pages book actually. 762 pages book. Okay, let me just download this. So you can see complete syntaxes here for everything, complete reference. Yeah, complete reference is available in this book. This is the ebook and it is updated last month. Latest up-to-date information as of now about RESTful programming model, everything what you need to know about RESTful programming model. See, unmanaged, managed, everything is there. Yeah, so now you see flight reference scenario, naming convention of development object, what's new in 1911, the own PV OP version, those who are on 1909 S4 HANA, for them, you want to know what is there available latest, so you can always check this out, because this RESTful ABAP programming model is also available in on-premise since 1909 onwards. Okay, now maybe just go to the documentation of behavior definition, and you can see here behavior definition. So somewhere you will also find the syntax. Let me just directly search read only. Yes, that was here. So you see here, this is the behavior definition projection syntax. Define behavior, behavior name, alias name. Then define static field control. You see field read only, your element name, field mandatory. Then use create, use update, use delete. Then you have feature control. Feature control is like your actions, custom actions. Somebody was also asking about how can we add custom actions. Associations, at times you have like order and order items. We'll see this scenario also. How can we create a sales order with sales order line items? using managed scenario approach, we'll see that. So this is the complete documentation. Here you can always go and check. You see explanation about e-tag, standard operations, locking, feature control, features, queries. The complete guide is available here. I found it on the internet, and after so much of research, and this is what I have published here on the training blog. You can read more about it in this 762 pages ebook. Okay, so that was about the documentation part, more detailed documentation, those who are looking forward for. All right, let's come back. Now we have got the mandatory field, we have got the read only field here for the travel ID. Let's implement the update and delete functionality now. So I'm going to go back. So last time in the behavior pool, or in the implementation, we have just implemented create. So now switch to the ABAP perspective again, and now we will implement the behavior implementation for the update scenario as well as the delete scenario. So let's implement first for update. I'm just going to go to the method, update method, and okay, let's implement for delete, and then we will be implementing for update also. So in delete, what you just need to do, read what is the key which user want us to delete, and then just after reading the key, travel ID key, we will just call the function module to delete the same. So the function module here which is used to delete the same is called function. Again, we use slash data model, demo data model, flight travel delete. Just a reminder, it's an unmanaged scenario, which means all the logic which you are writing is the business logic is already written in your function modules. Now it is asking you to pass travel ID. So no problem, we'll do that. So we'll get you the travel ID. We will receive all the error messages during deletion. If something goes wrong, you get error messages, yeah, or you get messages, whatever. Let's say you pass an invalid travel ID, you get an error message. So now I just declare this data lt message, interface for definitions, tt messages, and then we will just say whatever user asked me to delete. So basically you will get here again keys. So you see you're getting keys here for what user asked you to delete. So just loop at all the keys. To a field symbol. You can do via work area also, doesn't matter. To be deleted, that's my field symbol name, and function module goes inside. And now you see in this you get the value of travel ID which needs to be deleted. You store this travel ID in a variable, and now just check this travel ID, declare this. I'm just going to go to function module, copy that, search for the function module, open the signature of the function module, and see what is the data type it is expecting. DMO travel ID is the data type. Let's declare that. So we did that. We declared the travel ID as a value, and now this travel ID goes in, messages comes out. Now just in case if there is a failure, of course you got to now do the same thing, loop at all the messages and return these messages out to the field keys. So whatever you did in the create, we going to repeat that code. We need to inform the framework that something went wrong, where just say transporting no fields, where message type, if it is only error and abort, I'm going to stop the transaction. If it is error or abort, I'm going to insert value expression, and we are going to insert the content ID of field, because at this point of time I have both things, both content ID, the generated primary key, and also I have the travel ID which user asked me to delete. So let's take this to be deleted, and we have the compiler generated content ID, and we also have the travel ID here, which user asked me to delete. Travel ID, append this to insert into this whole thing. We need to insert into table field keys. We are done with the logic. Okay, why it's giving me an error? Let's check. Message ty, it's not type, and this is travel ID. All right, let's activate. So this is your delete implementation. So let's try and delete now. Try deleting our record. So if I go back, we just created 4142. Okay, just have to search here in travel ID. So this is the record. Select it and say delete. Voila, you can see the object has been deleted. Let's do a search again, and there is nothing found. Awesome. So that's your delete implementation. Now let's implement the update. Now one question to all of you. Suppose if I go to 4141, which we created just today, and if I go back and edit some data, and if I don't touch any field and just say save button, what should happen according to you? As a developer, would you now make a call to backend to fire an update request to database? I didn't even touch. Of course not. And in the past, in our programming, don't you think this you need to handle as a programmer? As a programmer, as a developer, don't you think this you need to handle? Whether data is changed or not changed, right? You need to compare with your buffer and handle that all processing. Guess what? Here this will be taken care by SAP Fiori automatically. I just say save button, and you see you haven't made any changes. This is completely managed, absolutely free for you by SAP Fiori. See the power of RESTful ABAP programming model. There are a lot of things which you don't have to do at all yourself. All of this will be managed by the framework together. This whole architecture, Fiori, behavior implementation, class pools, behavior definition, annotations, OData services, and model. All of these business objects. So all of these, they do take care in synchronization of many of the things which as a programmer you supposed to handle in the past. Yeah. Now I go for edit. Now next question to all of you. If I just go and change the description, what do you think while I'm firing an update request, which property should I fire an update to database? Should I update everything in database? Update table, table name, update agency number, customer number, starting date, ending date, booking fee, total fee, currency code. Do I need to update everything? What do you think? Do I need to update everything? Do I need to fire? Now this also as a programmer you supposed to handle, right? As a programmer in the past, you only supposed to handle that also, correct? Guys, there's a good news. The framework here will tell you what has been changed. The Fiori understand what has been changed on the UI, and Fiori will send an extra uh, compiler generated variable to you to tell you in RESTful context which property user touched on the UI. So you will only and only update that property in the database. You will not touch other properties, because firing an update on other properties is risky at times. Okay, it's risky. If user change data of only one property out of 500 properties, why do you fire 500 property updates? And in the past, as a BAP programmer, you only supposed to handle that, correct? But now watch out the benefit of all these things. If user change only one property, only this particular property will be changed on the UI. I will show you that in the system while firing an update. So let's come to the update. So that was your create, that was your delete, and now coming to the update. So again, the absolutely same logic. We got to loop over the data which has been imported. So you can check the signature, it is getting entities again. So I'm going to loop over the entities data which is coming to me. So let's go to the update and I say loop at entities, assigning field symbol to be updated. And the function module which we will call to update the data is call, again, your data model DMO, and please update. I want to fire an update for flight travel update generated. And now see here, it is not just asking you the data, but it is also asking you an indicator. This indicator will contain a boolean property for every single property on the UI. In this structure, you will tell the function module which are all the property user changed on the UI. Are you getting this? So there are two parts here. One is the data, another is the indicator. This indicator will tell you which data has been changed. Okay. So behind the scene in this function module, SAP will only update the properties which are changed. It won't go for update of all 500 properties which are not changed. Clear everybody? So in update function module, it's expecting you two properties. One is the what needs to be changed, and second one is indicator of what was changed by the user on the UI. So we need to fill these two actually. Okay, so let's fill these two, shouldn't be a big problem. So first thing which we will be filling is this incoming travel data. So let's say ls travel, that's an input, but I will also now fill ls travel x. Okay, let's declare them. So I'm going to go back, type. So this is a legacy code, basically already existing code. We are going unmanaged scenario. So tt underscore message, oh sorry, travel in travel data. We will also handle messages, of course, as usual. If just in case some update fails, what was the reason why update failed? So again, the same interface which is possessing all the data types, tt messages. Then we will also create finally this ls travel x, which is an indicator of which property was changed by the user on the user interface. Don't worry, I will show you in a second how will we know. Fiori will tell us which are all the property user changed on the UI. That the information is with Fiori. Fiori will pass to you. Okay. Okay. So now this is the structure which you will pass here. This is the structure for input data. This is the structure which contains just an indicator of what was changed. Okay, now come here. So the very first thing, we need to now map the data. We need to bring the data here. So like during the create method, we did the mapping. We have created a map data method already to map this data from the BAPI structure to the BAPI structure from the input data from the entities. So that's the same code, and that's what we pass to be updated. So to be updated is now mapped to the data which needs to be sent. But this contains all the fields, all the data which has come from the UI, but all the data has not changed on the UI. So how do we know that? So now if you observe this to be updated carefully, this contains a special property called percentage control. This is another compiler generated property. This control property is filled by Fiori. When Fiori is sending you the data to be updated, Fiori is also filling this, marking the field which was changed by user. So in our case, only description field was changed. So you will get this description value as X. So when you run this code behind the scene, what will happen at runtime, this value will be X. Okay, are you clear? How is Fiori informing us which property on the user interface was changed? Is that clear to everybody? This is another compiler generated property structure. Actually, it's a structure which contains all your properties to tell you which property was changed by user on the UI. Is this clear to everybody or not? Is this clear to everybody or not? Yes or no, everyone? Is this clear to everyone or not? If clear, then let's go ahead and fill our travel X. So in our travel X, what we'll do, we'll just say travel X hyphen all my properties one by one. Agency ID equals to be updated control hyphen agency ID. Now similarly, I will just have all of them one by one. What was changed? So that automatically will fill across all the properties. So first was agency ID. Second one is begin date. Is begin date changed? If yes, please populate begin date. Corresponding cannot be used. Look at here, the property names are different. It's agency ID without underscore, but here it is agency underscore ID. So you cannot use move corresponding actually, because both the property names are having a difference of underscore. If you would have created the same name, then we could have used it. But since we have not, we are just manually mapping them one by one. So this will now tell you what was changed. I'll also debug and show you. Don't worry, we'll see it in the debugging. So you see description, which is what actually we changed. So rest all the properties will be blank. Only the description will be X because user changed the description on the UI. A travel ID you can't even change. It's a primary key. So let's not write any coda for that. So now that's your X values. This is an inbuilt compiler generated structure which will tell you what was changed on the Fiori app during update. Awesome. Now we get messages, of course, during update something may fail. So you get, of course, the message handling. As always, you're going to check if this is retable LT message transporting no fields with key message type. If it is error or if it is abort, we're gonna insert same logic. Absolutely, there is no change. And then here you will put travel ID which has failed, and which travel ID has failed to be updated. You have your travel ID here, and you can also update the primary key of the transaction buffer. You get it in the CID ref failed. Awesome. So with the key, Message type, this, sorry, we should use where. All right, now we are done. So this is not needed. We are populating the field keys. Looks all good. Let's try the negative scenario first of all while debugging. Okay, so I'm gonna put up a value here, put up a breakpoint here, and now I'm gonna go back and try to put a status which is not valid. I'm going to put a status, let's say I. There is no valid status called I in my application. So of course this validation will be caught or will be catched by my function module because it's a legacy code. It's an unmanaged scenario. All the validation is already I'm expecting is there in the function module. Remember, it's unmanaged scenario. Validation has to be there in your legacy code because how are you running till today then, right? If it is not there in the legacy code, I'm going to save, and now it should hit our breakpoint in the update method. Yes, it is. And I say F6. That's a benefit of REST protocol. You don't have to refresh your app. Actually, the code is getting triggered. Now it has got all the data in travel in. So we have passed all the data. So you see, we just passed the status as I. Okay, we didn't change anything. We just changed the status. And of course, I also changed description. So these two things we've changed. It has come now. Rest all properties are not even supplied from the UI to the backend. See the benefit. There is no data transfer. If the data is not even changed by the user on the UI, there is no transfer of such data to the framework, to the backend. This is the biggest benefit of RESTful ABAP programming. It improves the performance indirectly because in the past you used to transfer everything from the screen program to the program, to the dialog program or the DIN-Pro to the program, and there you were comparing. You were doing all the comparison logic and all that thing. Okay, all of that you were comparing actually. So that's something which is not happening anymore. So now I'm going to come back. So now you say there is no travel ID. Yes, of course, this will also produce a multiple record at this point of time. That's a limitation. You can only choose here one record at a time because there is a radio button. There is no way you can update multiple. Okay. Currently, this functionality is not offered by SAP. So you can't do that. You're limited by this. It's only the radio button. You can choose one at a time. So you have to say result as one. Okay. And say dollar $self means my own object of this CDS view will be passed as an input parameter to this set booked. I'm going to activate this. So that's the second step. Step number one, add an annotation. Step number two, add a behavior definition. Step number three, now the code, the implementation. So for that, let's go to the implementation. And this will be during the transaction phase, transition phase. Here you have to add a method for that set book with the same name again. So method set booked, that has to be the method name. You have to exactly put the same name. For modify, the operation type is an update for update, or you can add a modify. Update what? Update my travel data. Okay, or you can also say for modify importing keys for action, and then you have to put your data type exactly. So importing keys for this guy. Save this. Okay, why it's giving me an error. Yeah. Result results. Okay, we have to give action name, my friends. So let's go and choose our definition name, action name. So this tilde symbol, action name is set booked. So this is the syntax to define the method. Methods set book for modify importing keys. This will import you the travel ID in the keys parameter. For action, your action name which you define in the behavior definition. Result results. This results is basically the output parameter which will tell whether it was update was successful or not. Now it's giving an error because this method implementation is currently missing. Let's implement the method at the bottom. So I'm going to come back. I say method set booked. Remember, the name has to be same. What you're putting there in the annotation, what you're putting here in the method name, what you're putting in the behavior definition, all of these places, this has to be the same. Okay, set book, this is our method name, end method. And now what I will do is I will say here data lt message. Again, messages will come for sure, because anything fails, it has to be captured by the BAPI messages. And we will be internally firing an update actually to change the booking status to booked. So coding wise, almost every method, as you can see here, it's same. Okay, and we will be using an update method behind the scene to change the booking status. So call function demo data model. It's an already existing functionality because it's unmanaged behavior flight and set booking. I pass the travel ID. So automatically with this function module, the status will be set to booked. We receive LT message, and now it's time to pass travel ID. Same code, absolutely same code. To be booked. Now we come here to be booked. And in this we have our travel ID with us, which we will give it to this function. And as a result, end result, this will be changed. So let's declare this travel ID. Travel ID field. That's all our code, and handling the messages, of course, as usual. Loop at okay, transporting no fields. Same code, exactly same code. So all the messages of failure will be pumped in here to be updated, to be booked. Travel ID. Which operation has failed? Done. Let's activate the code. And now it's time to see it in action. We should see a new button, Anubhav Kills, on the UI here. And when I select and click on that button, this status, you see this P travel status, it should change to B immediately. Okay, that's called feature control. I'm going to press F12, right click and reload, empty cache and hard reload our application. So the Fiori app preview is a great feature. You can immediately see the preview. You can develop and test, develop and test, develop and test, and voila, you see Anubhav Kills here. Click on go button. I can just select any of the product, any of the booking. You see the current status is N for this particular item, vacation N, it's new booking. I say Anubhav Kills, and oops, looks like it's drilling down, something is happening, something not right. Let's go back and cross check. Yeah, it's working, yes. You see it's changed to B. Status is booked. Okay, I select again, maybe this one, business trip to USA. Anubhav kills. I'm not sure why it's drilling down. Ideally should not, and there you go. You can see the change status to B. Clear everybody? How is exactly you can change or add a feature control, an extra feature to your code. So that's how you add a custom action on the list report. So many a times in your report programs you need these type of custom actions to update data, change data, sometimes do multiple operations, sometimes calculate some totals. For example, if it's an insurance application, I want to calculate premium of every insurance policy. I can choose the insurance policy name and click on calculate premium, and then it automatically does some backend coding to calculate and updates the record, and then I can see the updated premium on the UI. So this is the kind of scenarios you can implement with the help of such custom actions. Any questions, guys, in this session? So what we learned today, we learned about adding new field controls, making field mandatories and read only. We learned about updating and deleting the data using RESTful programming language, implementing the class pool for update and delete. We have learned about action processing and feature control. How can we add them? And then we also checked everything in the debug mode. How can you troubleshoot the issues? What kind of issues we face? We face couple of dumps, couple of issues, debugging end to end, finding the root cause of the issue, working with the transaction buffer, and then finally performing all the crude operation using unmanaged scenario. In the next class, we will start with managed scenario, which is more powerful and interesting for greenfield implementations, because in ABAP on cloud, at least you would do greenfield only because your application logic is not present in cloud. The unmanaged scenario is more useful for people who are doing on-premise RESTful programming, because in on-premise S4 you have your business logic available readily for you, so you can do a lot of things there. But in case of cloud, if you are doing native cloud development, I would strongly recommend you to go with managed scenario only. Don't use unmanaged scenario because your legacy code is not available in ABAP on cloud system. This scenario is more relevant for those who are going to work on RESTful programming language in S4 HANA on-premise. So this will not help you if you are working with ABAP on cloud. What will help you in ABAP on cloud if you want to build an application from scratch with database tables is the managed scenario, which we will see from our next session. Time for your questions one by one. Any questions, anybody?
Hello, Anubhav. This is Sushant, and I have
Yes.
a question from your previous class.
Mm-hmm,
So, last class, actually, you taught us about this class pool and dynamically calling these different classes in the class pool.
mm-hmm,
So, like, say, yeah, just for calling these classes in the class pool. So, say if we have to dynamically call this
mm-hmm.
different classes in a class pool, what's the best way of doing it in RESTful ABAP?
In RESTful ABAP, that's the only way. I mean, in RESTful ABAP programming, they don't allow you to put the logic in the global classes. This is the guideline and this is the way of implementation what SAP have proposed, that any code change or any code which you have to write in context of RESTful has to be as part of the local types in the class pool, because your RESTful program framework or RESTful framework will always read this format. It always understand this format. The moment you deviate from the format, it won't understand it. Please understand, you are just adding hook methods for the framework is already there. It's doing most of the job for you, like generating the user interface, tracking the changes done by the user, handling the OData calls, managing the database insert, update, delete. You know where written any insert, update, delete commands. You are just implementing the hook methods, which has to be as per the desired framework format, and this desired framework format is this one actually.
Yeah, that's about the methods. But say, like, say, given a condition, like, say, different
Mhm.
classes, then, like, is if the only way of doing it, or is there another better way of doing it? Like, say, if output type is this, call this class. Is there a way to sort of dynamically, like, if you have to call different classes?
What you
from a
can
global
do is,
class?
yeah, there is one thing you can do. For example, what I can do is I can also create a global class outside, and I can instantiate that global class in my local class, and then I can call it. For example, let me quickly show you maybe if it is possible here. Let me just create a new class here, a global class, new global class, and I'll say ZCL demo globe. Say next. And we will simply add one method in that class, in that global class, and we will use that global class in these local classes, and let's see if it is permitted in ABAP. I'm not sure, never tried it, but I think your question is more about modularization. Is there any way I can separate this piece of code which I've written in local class to somewhere else outside, and then can I modularize it? I think should be possible. Let's try that. So just create another global class, and in this class the map data method, if you remember the map data method, we're going to separate that method. So this map data, we kept it here. I'm going to separate this out, just cut it from here, copy and go back, and let's put it here in the public section. So this is one map data method which I put it here. Now let's bring its implementation also from there. This is the implementation, and we just bring it here. So what it's just doing, it's just mapping. Imagine this is some functionality, you have it in global classes, or you want to build in global classes separately, and you want to reuse this in your behavior implementation. So that class which you see here, this ATS00U travel, is just a behavior implementation. And now I want to use this global class as part of my this functionality. So you can do that. Maybe I would rather create a class method, because then it becomes a static when I don't have to take the pain of instantiating this class, global class. I can directly call map data, and I can come back, and I think it's 100% possible. I can come down here, and this map data which you are calling, okay, you can just use the global class name arrow symbol to call a static method and just save this. Done. So now this map data functionality is written in another global class which you are invoking here. Is that what you're asking, Sushant?
Yeah, so basically that's my question was like, say if we have to call say different classes.
You can
So I
do
have a
that.
class pool, I have different.
Yes.
Okay,
See, this is just like a normal ABAP class. This
okay.
concept is called class pool. It's just a container where you're writing your ABAP code. You can definitely call, you see, we are calling outside function modules. Similarly, we are calling now a class, which is global class, to map data. All right. So that is 100% possible. You can modularize your functionality in n number of ways like this. Ultimately, it's ABAP. Okay, you can use design patterns also, like factory, facade, com, adapter, decorator, listener. A lot of these design patterns, as an architect you should understand design patterns, and that's covered in my object oriented programming training. Those who are interested to learn design pattern, become an architect, you can subscribe for that. All right, I will share this code as usual in a notepad file with all of you. You can download and test it
Anubhav,
right away. Yes, please.
Can we have a custom messages like all the time we cannot display message like a saving, creating, updating. We need to display with error details also. Can we have a control like that?
Yes, we can have custom messages. I think should be possible, but for that message class must exist. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to create it in cloud system here in this trial system. If they allow me to create a message class, let's give a try. Yeah, they allow me. Yeah, you can add it. So you see, I can add the.
Okay. And um, so one more thing, last one. Sorry. Like we have two types of exposes. Like one is API link expose and one is UP, like a UI link expose. So can we have a same CRUD operations in normal API link expose?
I didn't get you.
Usually in we have here two types of expose. One is API expose, one is UI
Okay,
expose.
you mean to say
Like app.
service implementation, service bindings? There are two types of bindings.
Yes,
One
yes,
is
yes,
called based on UI, another is called based on API. We also created the one for API. Yes, yeah, yes.
yes, yes, yes. In API, can we have a CRUD operations like same like in OData concept?
uh, we can have, of course, that is something you don't have to write the logic yourself. System will do it for you,
Acha, do we have
because
any like
you have a
as of
CD.
now? Yes, please.
Mhm.
As of now, we need to save the data with the API link. So in our real-time scenario, just asking, is there any guidance from you?
Sorry, I've not explored that scenario yet, but let me note down this in my notebook and I will come back to you. So I
Yeah.
understood your use case. Your use case is you have
Yes.
a database table in ABAP on cloud system. You
Yes.
want to
Yes.
expose an
Yes.
API
Exactly.
there, and then from, let's
Yes.
say, from a Java app or a Fiori app, or maybe from an
Yes.
on-premise ABAP system, you want to call this ABAP
Yes.
cloud API and send the data to a
Yes.
database table in cloud. I understood your use case.
Yes.
I
Exactly.
have not explored it.
Yes. Exactly.
It was not also planned to be part of this course, but it's a good use case you have come up with. Let me
Yes.
look into it, but I
Real-time
don't
scenario.
promise anything that it will come this month, because this month I'm also planning one weekend off, and we will also focus
Okay.
from next class on managed scenario. So I'm trying to finish managed scenario by next three classes before I go for vacation. And once I come back in
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
year, that's when I will
Yes.
try my best. But as of now, I don't have any reference. I'm really sorry for that.
Just
That was
please
not
guide
expected.
me. Yeah. Yeah. At least give me a little guidance that will be really helpful to me. Thank you.
I can give
Hello,
you, but
Anubhav.
that's something will take time. I cannot promise on time because I'm these days getting completely packed. Let me just show you where my time is going these days. Most of the time is these days going and preparing more content on YouTube, because there's a huge demand. I have a big audience and they're constantly asking for some or the other thing day by day. It's getting
Okay.
more worst for me because every single day I get so many emails demanding so many variety of video. कितना भी बना लो कम है.
Okay.
No matter how much I work
Okay.
day and night 24/7, it's never enough,
Yeah.
because everybody has their own
Yeah.
requirement. As you can see here,
Yes.
currently I'm releasing these videos about CDS view performance.
Yes.
Some of you were asking me this question
Yes.
constantly: how can we measure the CDS view performance? Is there any possibility? Can you show us what are all the tools we can use? There was an interview I attended. They asked me a question, Anubhav, how to measure the CDS view performance, how to check it, what are all the trace mechanisms available, what are the annotations available. So this is the current series which is already going on live in the market. So yesterday I've released second video, part 2 for this, and now soon release the third part of this also. Okay, so two of them are already released. There's one more which is yet to come. There were also question about SOAP versus OData. Sushant has asked me long time back. I promised him I'll bring back with some content. You can see it's already available. Difference between SOAP and REST and OData services, how to call a SOAP service from a Fiori application, how to call a REST service which is not an OData service from a Fiori application. This video is currently private. I'm still editing these videos. So I have lot of things. You see, calling an OData service from a Fiori app using what about multiple OData services if I have in my company? How can I manage it in a better way? So debugging OData services with Chrome debugging tools. Can you show us the back-end debugging, front-end debugging more in details? So most of the time is going in preparing these things with almost about 6 different training sessions are going on ABAP on HANA, S4 HANA, S4 Cloud, ABAP on Cloud, SAP UI5 and Fiori. Almost every day I spend like 4 to 5 hours only in training sessions. Then on top of it, my regular company work, escalations, design reviews, interviews which I have to take it. All of this is parallelly going on for me. So managing all these things with a team of, also I have a team of 7 people working for me day and night at anubotrainings.com with a lot of different issues. Yesterday somebody disrupted our S4 server. They've adopted EKKO table and they've left it incomplete, inactive, and whole system was down for 6 hours. There was no user which could work with the system. It was dumping everywhere. All these sudden things will also come up. Ad hoc task will come up in the middle and they eat up a lot of my time. So And together with that, I have some job supports going on for different clients, with some 2 to 4 real-time projects also going on with Cloud Foundry. We have also a Victoria application which we are currently building for our customers in Gujarat. So that also live project is going on. So there are multiple things going on. Together with the job, it's getting so difficult to manage. So please understand my situation. This is the current situation I am into, and every day almost 70 to 80 emails I have to personally respond. So considering all of this, it's very, very challenging to take up something new in the middle, or taking up some kind of job support assignment at the moment. But I will promise you that I will bring up the content which you need, but I cannot assure you a timeline for that.
Thank you. Thank you. I understood. Thank you.
Mhm. All right.
Anubhav, one question.
Yes, please.
Hello, Anubhav, one question. Say if you have an on-premise system and if you were to talk to a service in the cloud, would
Mhm.
you be covering that in this training?
That's what he is asking for. That's what he's asking.
Oh,
He's
okay,
saying
okay.
you created a web API here. Is there any possible to call this web API and store the data in your cloud system? Is it possible? That's what he asked.
Okay,
So
okay.
that's what I said.
Yeah,
I
like
not
REST
promise you it's
data
not was
source.
originally
Okay,
part of it, but let me see if I can do that. Okay. I have
okay,
noted down,
okay.
don't worry. I have noted down. Once it comes in my list of note down, it will definitely be covered once for sure. Let me see before the vacation only if I can cover that for you in some video.
Okay, okay, okay. Also, Anubhav, one more thing. I was actually trying that scenario which you are showing us, and I was giving an agency number, a weird agency number, like say 7 followed by 4 zeros and 5 3.
Mhm.
And it was actually giving me an exception. I was not able to work with that agency number. So, and I was only able to like say work with agency numbers starting with 7, 2, 7 ending with 2,
Yes,
7 ending with 3.
correct.
So if I give a weird agency number, how can I sort of,
You
yeah,
cannot do
something
that
like that.
because that's the association is validating. So you have to kill the association in that case. Or maybe you have to go
Okay.
and adapt or change your functionality, because in this function module, the create function module, SAP is doing the validation for agency number in this function module. So
Okay.
stop using this function module, fire a direct insert on your database table without a validation or a code. Here write an insert statement on DMO table directly. It will allow you. This function module is causing the problem. In this function module, SAP have written the code to validate everything which you pass. That's why you're getting it.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Catch you up tomorrow, and we'll start menace scenario. Very interesting topic tomorrow's class. Menace scenario. I love that part. That's the most interesting and most relevant for the people who are going to work with ABAP on cloud. But those who work on ABAP RESTful in on-prem, the unmanaged scenario is more important. But for those who will be working with the ABAP on cloud, the managed scenario will be more important. With that, thank you so much. Catch you up tomorrow at the same time. Have a nice day. Goodbye.